Welcome back to our NFL predictions. We are doing the AFC North today. As always, joined by fellow Fat Man and good friend Colton Bartholomew. I'm Logan Wenger. Hi, Bart.
Wang, what's up, buddy?
Not much. Just excited to be talking football again.
Oh, it is here, man.
And as everyone else, we're going to be talking way too much football for way too long because it's the most popular sport in America.
You're dang right it is.
And because this is our podcast, and for whatever reason Bart let me pick, we're going to talk about my team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, first.
All right.
So what we're going to do for each team is we're going to do key additions, key losses, overall preview. And then to wrap things up, we'll give a prediction of record because we went through and picked every game in the NFL season because we're losers.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So for the Pittsburgh Steelers, key additions were tight end Ladarius Green and offensive tackle Ryan Harris, a guy that you know a little bit about. And key losses were Calvin Benjamin, Steve McClendon, and Antoine Blake.
You know, I don't think they lost anybody key that's going to make a huge impact.
The only one I would say is a little key is Steve McClendon, just because he was a pretty good nose tackle, and that's what they need in their 3-4 defense. But you can find a nose tackle almost anywhere nowadays because you just need somebody that's big and strong.
Yeah, I mean, they've never had that guy that's going to be that pass rusher from that spot. He's going to be the guy that plugs up the holes and takes on a double team without giving up ground. So they've got enough options that you can find guys in that area. And the thing that I like about the Steelers defense this year is they have so many young guys. You know, it used to be the Steelers had this crazy old defense, and somehow they were still good, even though they're all in their twilights of their career. But now it's kind of flipped over, and they're still good, but now they're all pretty much younger.
It took a while to flip over, too, because there was a few years in there where they were old and not very good, but now they're finally young and up and coming. I
mean, I honestly think Ryan Shazier, the linebacker out of Ohio State, is going to be either this year or the next year in that conversation with like the Kuechly's and the Navarro Bowman as like the top linebackers in the NFL.
Yeah, I hate to sound like a homer, but he's one of the best linebackers that people don't talk about yet, just because he's got such a high motor and he's probably the fastest linebacker in the NFL.
Yeah, from side to side. I mean, you can't.
Yeah. He ran a race against the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers and beat guys like Antonio Brown.
Which I gotta question if Antonio Brown was sandbagging it, just because I've seen him torch some of the best corners in the league. But
just so Shazier can say he beat him in a race one time.
Yeah. But switching over to some of the acquisitions that the Steelers made, weren't super active in free agency, which they kind of rarely are.
Yeah, they never really make a huge splash, but one decently sized splash, and a key departure I forgot to mention, was Heath Miller, who retired, which is why they needed to sign Ladarius Green, which I don't know. He's probably an upgrade speed-wise, and I don't know what the word is for it. But Heath Miller was such a presence in the locker room, they're going to be losing that. But Ladarius Green does a lot of things that Heath Miller couldn't at the tight end position.
Yeah, he definitely expands the tight end route tree over Heath Miller. However, Heath Miller was incredibly good on third down at just getting to the sticks and getting first downs. I mean, the first guy that Ben Roethlisberger was looking for was Heath Miller. He always was by the sticks.
Yeah, him and Roethlisberger had such a stupid good chemistry. Because Ben Roethlisberger is on the record as saying Heath Miller is the best teammate he's ever had.
Oh, wow.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Just a white tight end from Virginia is the best teammate he's ever had, apparently.
And a guy that's won 2 Super Bowls, I mean, had a lot of good teammates.
Oh, for sure. And plus, I don't know if any listeners play a lot of Madden, but we are big Madden players.
Sure.
The Steelers have the 4th best quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, the top-rated running back at Le'Veon Bell, if he plays, which I have gone off about once already on the podcast, and the best wide receiver in Antonio Brown. So they should be good in real life, but they're going to be really, really, really good on Madden.
Very true, and that's always a nice thing when the team you like the most and like playing with the most is very good.
Exactly. But I don't like to brag, but I'm decently good at Madden, so people get mad when my team's good, but fuck them.
That's right. The thing I question with the Steelers is last year, obviously injuries were kind of the reason this happened. Last year had similar talent and then went 10-6. Lost some games they shouldn't. They finally got healthy late in the year, and as we've talked about before, probably should have beaten the Broncos in the divisional round.
Yeah.
And end that run. But what do you think it is about just? Is it the difficulty of the division, or just kind of the way the Steelers are? Like, they always seem to lose one or two games that are just like, how did they blow that one?
They do play in one of the better divisions in football because the Bengals have been good in recent years. The Ravens always play them tough even when they're not good, but they beat up on the Browns because the Browns suck.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. The Steelers always lose one game they shouldn't, whether it be randomly losing to Miami or randomly losing to the Colts when they weren't very good, or randomly losing to a team like the Bills, who have never been great recently. And I don't know if it's Mike Tomlin not getting his guys motivated to play bad teams, if it's just the guys not caring about bad teams and being like, oh, we're the Steelers, we're going to beat this team because we're good. Because the Steelers haven't been bad since Mike Tomlin's come to town. The worst they've gone is 8-8, which is stupid.
And wasn't that the year that Roethlisberger was suspended for the first part?
Yeah, he's been suspended where he missed the first 4 games for allegedly sexual misconduct. And then he's also missed a couple games at the beginning of the year because he was in a motorcycle accident. He missed a couple games at the beginning of the year because he's gotten an appendectomy. Just, if Roethlisberger can stay healthy, I think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
I'd be with you there. And if you talk about the weapons he has, you already talked about having the best running back, or one of the best running backs in football, in Le'Veon Bell. Even if he doesn't play all 16 games, the 12 or however many you have him, he's going to be one of the best players. And then you've got D'Angelo Williams, one of the best backup running backs, and both guys really can do it all from that position, running in between the tackles, getting outside, catching the ball. And then their wide receivers, Antonio Brown, best wide receiver in the league right now. And then you've got Sammy Coates, who I like quite a bit. Definitely an up-and-comer. Darius Hayward-Bay, who is just a speedster, but when you've got an arm like Roethlisberger, if he gets one-on-one coverage and he's open, he's going to hit him.
Darius Hayward-Bay has gotten better the last couple of years in Pittsburgh, too. I mean,
he's obviously, I think that's a product of who he's playing with.
Yeah, he was obviously a dud in Oakland because he didn't deserve to be drafted in the first round, but Al Davis just drafts speed, always. But he bounced around to the Colts and didn't do much with the Colts. But when he got to Pittsburgh, I'm not going to say he's like a great receiver by any means. But you're probably right. Playing with Roethlisberger does up your ability. But I would say he's gotten better.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And you put all that talent and the skill positions together with an offensive line that doesn't have a ton of huge names. I mean, Ryan Harris just came over from the Broncos, and he has been pretty good. Can play both right and left tackle, which is definitely versatility the Steelers need because for whatever reason your team always seems to lose. There are some key offensive linemen will be hurt.
Goes down no matter what.
They will be hurt within the first 4 weeks of the year. And obviously they have Marquise Pouncey, one of the best centers in the game.
He's usually the guy that goes down, though. He's missed 2 full seasons, I think, with injury.
This is true. But I think they've got enough talent up there. Obviously, David DeCastro is a really good guard. Doesn't get enough credit, and he can also play both sides. So you put all that offensive talent together and look at what we just talked about with the defense being that young and up and coming, a lot of speed, can keep up with everybody really. I see this year being a year that the Steelers are going to be in that top class of the AFC.
Another departure we really have to mention is Martavius Bryant, who's not going to be playing this year because he's been suspended a full season for marijuana usage, which is dumb because marijuana isn't a performance-enhancing drug. But at the same time, just don't smoke pot all the time.
Man, you know, they let you know when you're about to get tested.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it's like you get paid a lot more money to play football than you do to smoke weed. I don't know if you get paid to smoke weed.
But
it might be circles.
They're being famous and stuff, but still, you think you put down the blunt for a month, man? Come on.
For real. Oh, you know what? One thing before we get to our record predictions, not a topic that's probably going to be covered a lot in these just because they really don't matter. But the Steelers have had bad luck with kickers.
Yeah.
And
ever since Jeff Reed, who really held down the position for a long time, but then he got awful, and then they brought in Garrett Hartley for a while, who pretty much tore his hamstring last year. Then they traded for Josh Scobie, who was a fucking garbage fire.
He lost one of their games, right? Because he missed two field goals in the fourth.
The Thursday night game.
Yep, that's what it was.
Michael Vick was starting and had a win in place, and Josh Scobie, I'm pretty sure, missed 3 field goals that game.
Man.
I watched that game with my wife, Nicole, and she thought I was going to kill somebody. I was probably I was watching the TV like a serial killer. She could see the rage in my face, but I wasn't saying anything. Because I am such a Steelers fanatic, it affects my mood when they lose, and when they lose badly, something might happen to someone. It's not
watch
good.
Out. But they have Chris Boswell now, so
who was a rookie kicker last year and performed extremely well.
Yeah, after they got rid of Scobie, and then they had Sean Sweezum too, right?
Yeah, he was reliable for a while. He just happened to tear his ACL in a preseason game last year.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
So if Boswell can be at least in that 75 to 80 range, they'll be all right.
Oh, for sure. If he can repeat what he did last year, I think he made his first 24 attempts. I don't know, something like that.
It does help when you have an offense that is the most aggressive on going forward on fourth down in the league, which I love. And it's another reason why I think they're going to be good.
I also love the fact that they go for 2 all the time.
Yeah.
The fact that they move the PAT back, you might as well go for 2 more than you would.
The benefits of it, I mean, we saw it in the AFC Championship game. That game changed when the Patriots didn't tie it up. They were still down by a point because somehow Steven Gostkowski missed his first extra point of the year by clanking off the upright. So let's move on to our record prediction for the Steelers. And just from you and I talking before we started recording the podcast here, we both see some pretty good things for the Steelers this year. But I'll let you go first since it is your team. Mr. Wang, how do you see the Steelers season going?
I think, like we said, they will lose a winnable game like they always do. I think they will probably split with the Bengals because they're a good team. I think they will probably split with the Ravens because I think they're going to be better than they were last year. But I still see the Steelers winning the AFC North at 11-5.
Okay. See, here's what I'm a little bit surprised by. I actually have your team higher. I agree with you that they're going to split with the Bengals. I just have them losing at Cincinnati. I disagree on the Ravens, and here's the reasons why. They played Baltimore coming off the bye week in Baltimore. So I just said, give that team a week off to prepare for a Baltimore game. That's going to be a bigger advantage than Baltimore having it at home. Oh, shit. No, you know what? Baltimore has the bye week off that week, too. Yeah. You know what? We're flipping it. All right. On the fly here. But, again, I agree with you that they're going to lose a winnable game, and I had that being at Miami in mid-October. Just I don't think Miami's going to be great.
Sounds like a losable game.
Yeah, it is a losable game. Miami's good at home. And then a tough one at Indy on a Thursday night, and that's really the bigger reason why it's at. Just turning around on Thursdays is always tough, and late in the season like that, it's harder for guys to be able to be not at 100%, but at least at playable level that fast. So
that's very true.
So I have the Steelers going 13-3 here written down, but now I'm leaning a little bit closer to 12-4 because I think they might lose that at Baltimore game now. But somewhere in that 12-13 win range.
But we agree, one of the better teams in the AFC this year.
Yes, definitely going to be one of the top seeds in the AFC, if not the top, depending on the rest of the AFC plays out.
All right, let's go Bengals next.
All right,
So,
another team that made the playoffs last year, but was bit by the injury bug and kind of derailed some of the plans they had. And then not only with the injury bug, but then the hey, let's fight everyone and get ourselves a playoff loss bug.
The Bengals are, I don't know if they're my most hated team because I despise the Baltimore Ravens, but the Bengals are right up there now with that punk Vontaze Burfict that re-signed Adam Jones, who's just a piece of shit human being. On that defense, man, there's a lot of people that I am not too fond of.
You know, I feel like Marvin Lewis feels the same way. He just lets it happen.
He doesn't like people on his own team.
Yeah, he's just like, you know what? They're all right. They can play. See, that's the unfortunate thing about Burfict, because he's a guy that, if he wasn't such a dirty player, people would love. He came from relative obscurity to being one of the more talented physically linebackers in the NFL, but he goes for dirty, cheap shots. He tried to take out knees a bunch, and all this stuff's on video. These guys that do this, somewhere in their head they're thinking, "Oh, nobody's gonna see this." There's like 38 cameras at an NFL game.
Yeah,
they see
everything gets recorded now. Like from him kneeing Roethlisberger in the ribs when he tackled him in the wild card game, to trying to take off Antonio Brown's head at the end of that game.
Mm-hmm.
He does so many bad things. Ray Lewis used to be my most hated player in the NFL, but I would at least respect what he did on the field because he wasn't really a dirty player. I mean, he played hard, obviously, but he wasn't a dickhead on the field. But then my least favorite player was Ray Rice because he stomped on a terrible towel. So we all see what happened with that fucker's career. And now it's Vontaze Burfict. Because oh my god, just saying his name gets me mad. He's such a douchebag. And the best thing the schedulers did was giving the Steelers a game against the Bengals at home during his 3-game suspension for Antonio Brown. I don't know if they did it on purpose. I'm going to say they did. Thank you, NFL schedulers.
Yeah, that does help.
So,
but,
key additions they made this year. I only saw 2 big names that they added. Was Brandon LaFell from the Patriots, who's a decent receiver, and Carlos Dansby from the Browns, who's bounced around a little bit, but still a solid linebacker, I would say. I think they signed Dansby to maybe try and calm down Burfict a little.
That's a possibility, just as that veteran influence.
Yeah, because he's at the end of his career.
Pretty good. Sure. But yeah, this is why, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, I'm kind of down on the Bengals this year. They had some holes that they could have filled. I felt like that they just didn't. They were pretty not inactive, but they didn't make any big splashes in free agency. And then when you're drafting as low as they did, they were in like the high 20s in the draft. It's hard to find guys that are gonna be huge names, but drafted a corner, William Jackson III out of Houston. Nobody that jumps out at you just from a name standpoint. But my thing with the Bengals is kind of just organizationally, they seem to think that, okay, we went 12-4 last year, that's great. Let's not change anything. Let's try to keep that the same. That's not how the NFL works.
No.
We watched it in basketball this year. the Warriors had the greatest regular season ever, came a game away from the finals, and then they went out and added the second best player in the NBA. You know, if you're not getting significantly better, you're getting worse.
Exactly.
And
you need to add players to maintain your success. Because each year in the NFL is another grind, another year on the legs. People just get almost worse and worse each year, even if it doesn't show immediately. It's just more miles on the legs that add up over time.
Right. And they've had Marvin Lewis there for 17 decades, and
forever.
I don't know if that guy can get fired at this point. Not that he should, because obviously they had a good year last year. But I don't know what it would take to get him fired.
I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, there's going to be some more rumblings.
If they don't make the playoffs, he should get fired. But you're right. I don't know if they actually pull that trigger.
Exactly. He's been there for forever. He wasn't very good at the start. He accidentally made the playoffs a couple times. They weren't very good again. They were really good last year. He's got a bunch of cheating fucks on his team, though, so who knows?
And they lose in the first round again.
Hopefully.
But no, I'm saying last year they did.
Oh, yeah. They lost Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu, both solid receivers. They lost Andre Smith, a very talented tackle. And they lost Reggie Nelson, who led the NFL in interceptions last year. I know that fondly because Roethlisberger threw 3 in one game to him.
And let's start at that offensive line, because Andre Smith is an underrated guy, and I think is one of the best tackles in football. So
yeah,
you look at what they replaced him with.
Age is the only thing.
Yeah, but I think he's entering his 8th season, 9th.
Yeah, he's close to 30, maybe a little above 30.
Yeah. So right now, here are the tackles on the Cincinnati Bengals roster. Jake Fisher, second year out of Oregon. Cedric Obehu from Texas A&M. He's actually pretty good. Andrew Whitworth, backup. And then they signed Eric Winston, who's like 75 years old.
Yeah, he's been in the league forever.
Yeah, and he's like the head of the NFL Players Association for the players. So, like, I feel like they just give him a roster spot somewhere around the league, because he's bounced around. He's been in Houston, a couple other places. But my thing is here, you already saw what happened last year when Andy Dalton gets hurt. Adrian McCarron's a capable backup, but you don't want him to play. And I don't think they made enough of an attempt to replace a guy like Smith for how good he was.
I would agree, because offensive line is one of the most underrated factors of a football team. Just because it's not flashy to talk about. People don't really know the names of their offensive linemen unless you're like a diehard fan of a team. But you're never going to get a jersey of your favorite offensive lineman.
Yeah.
But
and
you need them.
And, Aaron Rodgers was on Bill Simmons' show last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago. And he asked him, would you rather have A-plus receivers and running backs and then like a C-minus offensive line, or flip those two? And he said immediately, better offensive line. Because if you have a decent enough quarterback and you give them time, they're going to figure it out.
They're going to
Someone's
elevate
get open.
the players around them.
Exactly.
You can't do that if you're on your ass all the time. So you need an offensive line.
And then you mentioned the departures of Sanu and who's the other one?
Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones, thank you. They don't really have anybody opposite AJ Green now. They signed Brandon LaFell, but we saw what he did with the pass last year. He had like 3 games worth it, but
yeah, he's not a number 2 receiver in the NFL by any means.
No, and AJ Green's amazing, obviously, one of the best receivers in football, but if you're going to let him get double teamed every play, you can't expect the other team to be so worried about Tyler Eifert that they're going to take away attention from AJ Green.
Yeah, Tyler Eifert had a really good season last year, but he's not a number 2 option. I am amazed they didn't draft a receiver in the first round. I thought that was the glaring need on their team that they just refuse to address besides Brandon LaFell.
And the thing I just don't get about how inactive the Steelers or the Bengals were. It's like, you know the Steelers are going to be there. You know the Ravens are going to be pretty good. Like, how do you not just look around and say, like, we got to add some type of weapon here?
Yeah, they were a doormat in the division for a while. Like, there were seasons that the Browns were almost better than them. Like, how do they not realize that Pittsburgh and Baltimore are usually the top tier of the division? So one year they get a little bit of success, but they don't build on it at all. The organization just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why? Why not try to be good for long?
Doesn't make sense. And Andy Dalton had his best year of his career before he got hurt last year. He's good. I don't think he's great. He's good, and I don't see them going further than they did last year or being better than last year because not enough changed. There isn't enough saying like, oh, they're going to repeat this performance. You know, that's just not how the NFL works.
No, it doesn't. I think they're still good enough to make the playoffs, but like I said, I don't see them winning the division like they did last year.
No, I bet, like we already said, what we think the Steelers record is going to be. I think the Steelers will be taking this AFC North here.
Yeah.
You know what? Since nice transition their way, it's like you do this professionally. Let's
Sometimes.
Let's go into our record predictions for the Bengals.
Like I said, I think they're going to split with the Steelers. They're going to sweep the Browns because everybody's probably going to sweep the Browns in that division. Other than that, they have, I don't want to say a tougher schedule than the Steelers because it's eerily similar, but I don't know. I just don't see them continuing what they did last year, especially being without Burfict for the first 2 games, or first 3 games. Yeah, first 3 games. I have them going 10-6, but I have them being the 5 seed in the AFC playoffs.
Gotcha. I also have the Bengals going 10-6, and you're right that obviously when you're in the same division, your schedule is going to be very similar. You play other divisions the same,
Exactly.
But I think that the order of their schedule was tougher. You know,
Yeah.
They start on the road at the Jets, and I'm not as high on the Jets as other people are this year, but I think they're going to be decent. That's a tough game to win. Then they go at Pittsburgh week 2 with no Burfict, and it's obviously that rivalry on the road.
The Steelers are going to be motivated for that game for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then Denver, we'll see. I mean, we'll talk about them in another podcast, but that's going to be a tough game no matter where it is. And then, unfortunately for them, they have to play the Patriots in New England for Tom Brady's first home game back from his suspension.
Oh boy.
What do you think that's going to be? 30 points? Even as good as the Bengals might be, that's going to be a pumped up game for the Patriots.
Knowing the way that Belichick and Brady are, they might try to hang 50 on them.
They could in front of those fans.
That could be brutal.
That could be ugly. And if the way that I see this starting out, I mean, I have them going 10-6. I think they're going to be pretty good, but I have them 2-4 in the first 6 weeks.
Let's see. We differ a little on that. In the first 6 weeks, I have them going 4-2.
But I think, like you mentioned, their schedule just doesn't shake out in more positive ways. They don't have whenever you look at an NFL schedule, you want to find like 2 or 3 weeks in a row where they have winnable games or like should be wins to get them on a little bit of a roll.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the Bengals really having that until a little bit later in the year.
Yeah, it's true. The back end of their schedule is much easier than their front end.
Yeah. So both of us, Cincinnati 10-6, and I think there'll be a wild card. Just the AFC, I think 10-6 will get you a wild card spot, but I think they'll be fighting for it.
True. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens. They were really, really, really bit by the injury bug last year, from Steve Smith
Like
to
almost
Joe Flacco.
almost to a historic level.
Yeah, to Terrell Suggs, to you name it. It feels like everybody was hurt on that team last year.
Yeah.
Which I'm not
nobody
gonna
more
say-
important than Flacco, who played the last few minutes of a game with a torn ACL.
Yeah, that's as much as I don't like the guy. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, the elite argument is funny Twitter stuff, but that's ballsy right there. You can barely feel your knee, and you're gonna go out there and keep slinging. Like, they had to throw in those minutes that he played.
Yeah, like I said, not a fan of the guy, but that's pretty crazy to do. So
Yeah.
props to him, but still don't like him. For key additions for the Ravens this year, the big one was Eric Weddle, free safety from San Diego, coming over. Gerard Powers, cornerback from Arizona. Old friend of Pittsburgh, Mike Wallace, is back in the division, who had a few shit years with the Dolphins and now with the Vikings, but is back to the AFC North. And I put this on here just because it's really funny. They signed Trent Richardson for some dumb reason.
They sure did.
Gonna bring depth to the running back position, I suppose.
And we talked a little bit about how important offensive line is, and they showed it with how they drafted and what they brought in too. They picked Ronnie Stanley from Notre Dame with the 6th overall pick. Definitely could have been Laramie Tunsil. I don't think John Harbaugh was too thrilled with the
The gas mask
minute
picture.
before the draft pot smoking video that came out. Not Laramie Tunsil's fault, other than recording it. But so they went with Ronnie Stanley, and then they just signed. Oh, where'd he go? They just signed Jake Long. The old.
Didn't that get voided because he wouldn't sign like an injury guarantee something?
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, there was something where he wouldn't put some sort of injury provision into his contract. So the Ravens were like, we'll pass.
Ah, all right. Never mind. Then.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I could be wrong. We're not good at stuff.
I mean, we researched enough, but not all the way. Don't expect much.
Yeah. We do what we can.
But just kind of talking about the what they lost. I'm not sure how much they lost. In all honesty, I mean,
Yeah, the big loss that I have for them was Courtney Upshaw. But
Yes.
that was the only one that I put down for key departures.
and as good as Upshaw was athletically, I don't think he ever really fit in with what the Ravens were trying to do defensively.
No, for whatever
Like-
reason, he never clicked in their scheme.
Like, he made plays because he's fast enough to catch up to stuff, and I just always felt like whatever he was doing wasn't exactly what he was supposed to, you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, obviously he's a good linebacker, so he's going to make up for most things. But you're right. It just looked like he didn't fit in their defense, which is so weird because their defense needs fast, athletic linebackers, which is what he is.
And I've read quite a bit, actually, about how the Ravens have their, almost like the Steelers, they have their youngest defense in years. And they signed Eric Weddle, like you mentioned. That's definitely going to help with some veteran presence and a guy who can still play. I mean, I'm glad Eric Weddle's out of the AFC West for my Broncos.
Oh, for sure. The Steelers were in on Eric Weddle, and I was furious when he picked the Ravens.
Yeah, but you look at some of the core guys that the Ravens still have here. You know, they still have C.J. Mosley, who is better than most people have actually expected out of Alabama.
Yeah, he's one of the better middle linebackers in the league, for sure.
Terrell Suggs is coming off an injury.
Hate that guy.
If he's close to what he usually is,
Can we
premium
just
pass
agree
rusher.
that him saying "ball so hard university" is stupid? That's not a place. Stop.
You know what? I think making those guys come in and say what school they went to as opposed to just listing it is dumb. So I actually prefer when guys have a little fun with it.
Well, you're what's wrong with America.
Well,
You look at the
you're also
camera, you say your school, you give a fake smile, and you move on.
well, wasn't it? Was it Suggs or was it somebody else that did the Chappelle show? Pyaw! After everybody's name.
I don't remember, but I remember seeing it.
Oh God, it might have been Suggs. I feel like it was the Ravens.
It could be. They're stupid. So.
And I don't know if you want to consider this a good or a bad thing, but the majority of their defensive backfield is back from last year with the addition of Weddle as a safety. Their corners: Jimmy Smith, Kyle Arrington, Ladarius Webb, Sharice Wright. So
They
were
have a good safety too, don't they? Isn't it? Is it Will Hill? Did he come back?
Or do you mean Matt Elam?
I don't know. I might be dumb.
Okay. But I think they're going to be pretty solid defensively. I just think that offensively, Flacco coming back from the injury supposedly looks fine. Steve Smith, there's no way he can continue this twilight of his career.
You would
dominance.
think, but I didn't think he could do it last year or the year before that. But he just keeps. He wasn't even supposed to come back this year. He
I know,
announced
right?
that he was going to be done, but then he tore his Achilles, and he's like, I ain't going out like that. Which you got to respect. Who wants to go out on an injury?
Yeah.
But coming back from an Achilles, when your game is based almost solely on speed, it could be a down year for Steve Smith finally.
And it's like, man, you're almost 40. That stuff doesn't regenerate as well or as fast when you're that old. And you can't. If he comes out and plays as well as he did last year, I would be absolutely shocked.
Yeah,
And I like Steve Smith. I know obviously he's on the Ravens, so you don't like him, but I always liked his Napoleon complex as a wide receiver and trash talking and everything.
Yeah, it's cool to see him be able to do some of the stuff, being the little guy like he is.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I liked it in Carolina more. I don't like it as much in Baltimore, but I don't like the Ravens, but there's certain players you got to respect, and Steve Smith is obviously one of them.
Sure. One thing we didn't talk about in the acquisitions, but technically you could call this an acquisition, in Rashad Perriman.
Oh, yeah.
He theoretically will
didn't play it all last
this
year.
year. Didn't play it all last year. Got drafted last year.
You can tell they want to stretch the field really, really bad with Steve Smith, Mike Wallace, and Rashad Perriman as your top three receivers.
Very true. They are going to have guys that just like to fly. And Flacco has the arm to get it to him. So
If they all click, if Wallace does anything like he did in Pittsburgh, they could have a good offense with Justin Forsett running the ball.
And we talked about how they signed Trent Richardson, which is just kind of funny because they already got three guys that are legitimate NFL running backs, I think, in Forsett, Javorius Allen. What do they call? What's his real name or his NFL
They call
name?
him Buck
Buck Allen. Yeah, there it is.
for whatever reason.
And then Lorenzo Talafario. He did good last year.
Isn't he
They have
a
like-
true fullback that they kind of just made play running back after all the injuries?
Yeah, but I mean, they have like four guys at the running back position that will compete for playing time and actually be pretty decent. So it'll be an interesting year for the Ravens. I just think that when you come off a year basically that was lost last year to injuries,
Yep.
and they lost all those close games, like what was it, 9 or 10 within 6 or 7 points. Just every time the game was within reach, they just didn't do it. They couldn't pull it off.
Wasn't it them that lost the game in the worst way, where they had a penalty on a field goal attempt that missed, but then they got to move 15 yards closer? And I'm pretty sure it was against the Jags, and then the Jags ended up beating them because it was against Newville.
Yep, it was.
Yeah. Eat shit.
But let's jump over to our record predictions for the Ravens.
All right. I think They will be better, obviously, as long as they don't get bit by the injury bug as horribly as they were last year. Like I said, if Mike Wallace performs like he's capable of, but hasn't recently, if Perryman can come in and be a difference maker, if Forsett runs the ball like he should, Buck Allen should do what he did last year when Forsett broke his arm. Flacco is not an elite quarterback, but he's in the top half of quarterbacks, which is good for NFL standards. I don't think they're a playoff team, obviously, because I have 2 playoff teams from the North already, but I think they're much improved at 9-7.
All right. I feel like coming back from a year like that is a lot tougher than the Ravens, I feel like, are prepared for. And I think they're going to have a couple of stretches where they just lose a couple of games they shouldn't. And we talked about the schedule. You always look for those stretches. And the Ravens, I feel like, only have about one stretch where it's going to be a couple of should be not easy wins, but winnable games right in a row. And I'm not sure how good the wide receiving core is going to be. Like we mentioned, obviously Steve Smith old, Mike Wallace can only do one route. You don't know about Rashard Perriman. So I flipped your record. I've got them going 7-9, but on the right track. It'll be like a good 7-9. Those 9 losses, fair. I think, will be competitive.
I could totally see them going 7-9 too.
All right. Now moving on to the last team in the AFC North. We're not going to spend much time on them because they don't deserve it.
Nope.
That would be the Cleveland Browns.
Hooray.
All right.
Very happy they're in the AFC North. They haven't folded as a franchise yet, so thank you, NFL. Key additions. One of their key additions makes me really, really sad because I wanted to root for him no matter where he went, and I'm still going to root for him a little bit, but that being Robert Griffin III, just because he's a fun guy. I want to see him do well. He just seems like a genuine young man who wants to play quarterback a weird way.
Yeah, and he just seemed like a guy that he got hurt once, rushed back, hurt again.
Mike Shanahan might have ruined his career.
Mike Shanahan didn't want him, so I'm not going to blame Mike Shanahan. But yeah, you're right. I think he ruined his career.
Yeah. He won Rookie of the Year over Andrew Luck. Like, just think about that. People forget that.
Yeah.
I hope he's better. They also signed Demario Davis away from the Jets, who's a solid middle linebacker. Hooray. It's not going to make them much better. They lost Travis Benjamin, a speed threat, Alex Mack, one of the better centers in the NFL. And one of the big signings to the Jaguars was Tashawn Gibson, who is one of the better safeties in the NFL.
Yeah, and someone that should be on the departures list, but God help him, Joe Thomas.
Yeah, our boy Joe Thomas from Wisconsin, just stuck there again.
One of the best left tackles in football for almost a decade now, and just, for whatever reason, has some crazy loyalty to Cleveland.
Just one of the most wasted careers in offensive line history.
Poor guy. The Broncos tried really hard to trade for him last year, too.
Didn't they offer 2 first-rounders for him?
No,
that's what
Cleveland wanted. And Denver was like, no, we'll give you a 1 and 2 2s. And they said no.
Why wouldn't you take that? He's the best. You're not good, and you're just wasting probably the best tackle in football. That's just you being greedy.
And now they brought in the guy who Jonah Hill was based off of in Moneyball to kind of reorganize how they look at the game. So throughout the draft, they drafted like 5 receivers. And they got some decent name guys. They drafted Scooby Wright in the 7th round when everyone was like, oh, why isn't this guy gone? It's because he's not good. I get it. He's white, so you like him, but he's not good.
And he was hurt at the end of the year last year, wasn't he? Isn't he coming off a knee surgery?
Yeah, that's true, too. Yeah. They also got Joe Scobert out of Wisconsin. Actually has some potential at linebacker. I think they're going to be terrible.
Yeah, the Browns are not good.
They've got a lot of things going against them. I'm looking at their lead story on ESPN's Clubhouse right now is Terrell Pryor being an impressive wide receiver. And God help him, because I love me some T. Pry. I have since college. But if that's what you're depending on, watch out. Yikes.
Yeah, he's got the longest run for a touchdown in NFL history for a quarterback.
True, and that was awesome.
So,
like I said, love me some T. Pry. But
it was also against the Steelers, so that's why I know that. But our friend who's going to be on a podcast soon, Steven Tyler, will never let me forget it because it was while he was a member of the Oakland Raiders.
Sure was. All right.
Oh, but Browns are bad. I see him going 3-13.
Yeah, I've got him going 2-14. The only games I see him winning are at Tennessee. I think that'll be a wild shootout because I don't think either team's defense is going to be very good. And then they host San Diego in a home game Christmas Eve. For some reason, I just have a feeling that that's going to be a dumb game that the Browns somehow win. Like, I don't know, somebody gets hurt for the Chargers earlier, or the Chargers are packing it in at that point, and I feel like the Browns pull that one out. But otherwise, I think
I don't know if this is me being cynical to the Browns or whatever, but I give them a little bit of hope. I have them starting out 2-0, but then they lose the next 9 games in a row, get a random win, and then lose out.
All right, that's possible too. You know what? I don't want to hear anything about tortured Cleveland fans anymore. You're not. You won.
You won an NBA title. You had the best player in the NBA.
Yeah, and you had him for 8 years or 10 years or whatever before, and you screwed it up. And then he mercilessly, mercifully, I should say, came back and gave you another shot.
After you lit his jersey on fire.
But
you're awful people. So to recap, AFC North on my end, I have the Steelers winning at 11-5, Bengals making a wild card at 10-6. An improved Baltimore Ravens team at 9-7, and the Cleveland Browns continue to be the Cleveland Browns and go 3-13.
All right, and I have the Steelers. We have the same exact order. I have the Steelers going 13-3, Bengals 10-6, fighting for a wild card. Might make it, might not. Ravens 7-9, Browns 2-14.
And just like that, we have picked what will happen in the AFC North.
All right. We will be back soon with another divisional breakdown. This was the Fat Guys and Friends NFC or NFL previews podcast specials. Wen, good job, my friend.
Always a good job from you as well.
Tell the people where they can find us.
Well, the best way you can find us is on iTunes. If you just search Fat Guys and Friends in your little search bar up there, we'll pop up. Or if you want to tweet at us, it's at Fat Guys, capital N as in Nancy Friends. We should get more tweets. We don't get enough tweets.
True.
We're also on Facebook. If you just search in there, Fat Guys and Friends. Or you can send us an email, which, by the way, no one has ever done. fatguysandfriends@gmail.com. Email us. We're cool guys.
Yeah. We'll answer.
We'll probably respond. We just picked every NFL game. We don't have much going on.
Yeah, we've got time.
This was fun.
It was. All right, we'll be back soon.
Goodbye.